of overlap and a little bit of leeway here to make sure I'm really not going to see that stainless steel when I trim the excess off. And I'm just going to go ahead and apply the rest of the vinyl to the cup, and then I'm going to really firmly press down on that seam right there. So you can see where the tape is. It's going to give me a really good edge. I'm going to take my craft knife and I'm going to trim that off. And I will list all the products that I use in the description box below. I also have an Amazon's Favorites Things list where you can find like the craft knives that I use. I buy these in a set on Amazon. They come with like 60 blades, and I change them out all the time because I really like to have a really sharp craft knife. So I'm just going to run that right down the seam there, right up against my tape. Then I'm going to remove the excess, and then I'll remove the tape, and then we'll be ready to trim off the top part. Now I'm going to remove my tape here, and then I'm going to go back and I'm going to make sure that the top rim of the cup is placed down really well. Like I've made sure that there's no bubbles up there, and then I'm just going to trim off. You can see there's not very much here, and it doesn't have to be perfect. I'm going to go back and sand that rim a little bit, but I'm just trying to expose it enough right here that when I go do a layer of epoxy that I do have something for it to adhere to on the top. And I also will have the sanding blocks that I use, especially if I just have vinyl. After I apply one coat of epoxy, I do go in with, usually if it's just a vinyl, I'm going to use about 120 grit sanding block. And I'll have that. That's also in my Amazon's Favorite Things list. It'll be linked in the description box below for y'all. So now I've got this bottom piece, and I did cut it down pretty much true to size, but right here I'm just going in, and you can kind of see where I'm trying to get it to overlap. I don't want there to be, see how there's kind of like a little white flower right there? I don't want that to be broken in the middle. So I'm actually going to go in and trim off this little area that had the white on it. So you can see the overlap is going to be minimal here as far as like you actually being able to see where the seam is. I want that to be as least visible as possible. So once I get that trimmed off and I'm making sure that it's going to lay straight, I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm just going to trim off this little edge here of the backing, and I'm going to basically place this seam in the same place that the seam on the top is. So you can see I'm laying that down pretty close to where the top seam is going to be, so those will be on the back side of the cup. So they'll all be in the same area. Then I'm just going to double check myself to make sure that it's going to lay square on the cup, and then I'll go ahead and start wrapping the vinyl on the cup and removing the backing at the same time. Here again, I'm not going to take this backing off. I'm going to leave it on as long as possible. And then once I've made sure it's square on the cup, I'm just going to go ahead and continue to press the vinyl around. And you can see these, I love these 30-ounce skinny straights. They do have a rounded bottom, so I do try to be careful as I'm going around the cup to make sure that vinyl is laying really flat on the side of the cup. So when I go back to pull the vinyl around and wrap it around the bottom, that it is going to be smooth, there's no creases, and there's no air bubbles. So I do try to do that as I'm going around the cup at the same time. And then just because this is a little surface area here, I'm actually not going to lay my tape down, but I am going to cut the seam right at the same place. So I know that I'm going to still have a little bit of overlap of where I've cut the top seam. I'm going to cut that bottom one in the same place. So I know that I'm going to have a little overlap here. And it wasn't like a large area that I had to cut. So I felt fairly confident in my ability to cut it straight in just that little bit of area. And then I'm just going to pull off the excess, and then I'm going to go to the bottom, and I'm just going to pull the bottom of the vinyl up. The vinyl is really stretchy, y'all. You can pull, obviously you can pull on it hard enough that it will peel off, but I am pulling it tight enough here to make sure that there's no creases and there's no air bubbles. You can kind of see where my left thumb is here. That's the area that I really want to make sure where the vinyl is coming around from the side of the cup to the bottom, that it's really flat and there's no creases there, because that's where you have trouble. And then I'm just going to go in and trim off the excess, and then I'm going to take, I use my fingernail. You guys can use, you know, your tool that you apply your transfer tape with, a credit card, whatever. I just have found that my fingernail works best. And then any little areas that seem to be creasing in there, y'all just go trim them off. It's way easier to go in and cover the bottom with vinyl or the glitter or something else after the fact than it is to get this vinyl to lay down. Because if you put epoxy on this vinyl and it's not completely flush against the cup, it's a lot more trouble to fix after the fact. So I have learned just to go in there, and if I just need to keep trimming it back, then that's what I do to make sure I'm not going to have any problems after I put my first coat of epoxy on. And then I am going to go in with just a little strip of red metallic vinyl between the two patterned vinyls, and so I did want a layer of epoxy because I did not want that to lay directly on top of the seam. So I do go in here, I'm using Counterculture's medium viscosity artist resin, and I'm only going to use about 15 to 20 milliliters here. Obviously you guys know I've mixed up more than normal because I'm usually doing several cups at the same time, but on this cup I am just going to use a minimal amount. I just want enough to create like a really smooth surface, so when I go back in and add this little strip of red, that it's not laying directly on the seam. So I'm going to apply this coat. I'm going to use my torch to pop any bubbles, and then I let that coat dry for about 6 to 8 hours before I go in and I'm going to add this little strip of red vinyl. And I did just cut out a square in Design Space, and I just sized it to 11.5 by, I think this is 0.15, and I just applied this strip to the cup. I did go in here and do a quick little bit of Counterculture's Quick Coat. I'm sorry I didn't record it for you guys, and I actually just did it on that stripe. I did not cover the entire cup. Basically just where that seam is on the metallic vinyl, sometimes it wants to lift up. So I just wanted to make sure that that was really set on the cup. And then I'm gonna go in here with another 20 to 25 milliliters of Counterculture's medium viscosity artist resin. I'm gonna use my torch to pop any bubbles. And I did cut out a circle in the same, and I think it's 3 inches around in the same vinyl that's on the bottom, so I did cover that as well. But you could use anything. You could glitter the bottom, you could use white, you could use black. There's so many options you could do here. I just did it in the same coordinating pattern that I used on the bottom of the cup. And this is basically our final design, y'all. So this was like a super quick, easy cup, but I wanted to just see how cute these cups can be. And they don't really, you don't have to put a lot of them. You don't have to throw glitter and micas and all this other kind of crazy stuff over them. You really don't have to do that. They can be pretty basic, but still look good. And especially at Christmas, if you're trying to crank out a lot of ready to ship cups, this is a great option. So I hope that y'all enjoyed this quick little tutorial. I hope maybe I was able to help with some of your vinyl wrapping issues. Y'all please go like, share, subscribe, all that fun, crazy stuff. Thank y'all so much for watching, and please join my Dixie Darlings Tumblers Facebook group. We go live every Sunday night. I love to hear from y'all. I love interacting with y'all. I love for you to come there and share your creations with me and your take on these designs. So please share with us. Thank y'all so much for watching, and I'll see y'all again soon.